The cold metallic lid of the virtual reality capsule hissed softly as it sealed Tayang away from the real world. Outside this pod, millions of trapped souls were already dying across the globe as the game's lethal synchronization patch went live. With his younger sister's life hanging in the balance inside the system, the 5-time consecutive world PvP champion closed his eyes. Neon blue code instantly cascaded down his vision, tearing his consciousness away from reality and plunging him into the digital abyss. When Tayang opened his eyes again, he found himself standing barefoot on a cold, cracked obsidian floor. Instead of choosing a heavily armored warrior or a powerful mage, he instantly selected the most underutilized class in the game. Shimmering white light enveloped his body, instantly replacing any modern attire with the minimalist cloth robes of a low-level monk. A sudden loud pop echoed through the silent chamber as a tiny floating fairy creature materialized right in front of his face. "Welcome to your demise, foolish challenger, for I am the administrator BJ High, the miniature guide shouted pompously. Tayang simply blinked, completely unfazed by her grand introduction as he adjusted the fabric wraps around his knuckles. The small fairy gasped in absolute disbelief when she noticed the massive, exploding viewer count on his personal livestream channel. Millions of desperate real-world spectators were tuning in, instantly recognizing the legendary username of the undefeated PvP king. Before another word could be spoken, a grinding mechanical roar vibrated through the floor as the massive iron gates ahead slowly slid upward. From the deep darkness of the first floor, the clattering sound of hundreds of dry bones moving together began to echo rhythmically. An army of cursed skeletons emerged from the gloom, their jaws clattering as they brandished rusted swords and broken iron spears. The livestream chat erupted into sheer panic, knowing that a single strike from these monsters meant actual permanent death. Tayang merely smirked, cracking his neck to the side as an incredibly dense aura of focus settled over his expression. Without waiting for the monsters to approach, he took a single, deliberate step forward onto the blood-stained arena floor. The lead skeleton screeched horribly, lunging forward at blistering speed with its rusted blade aiming directly for his throat. With millimeter-perfect mechanical reflexes, Tayang simply tilted his upper body back by a fraction of an inch. Utilizing the monster's forward momentum against it, his wrapped fist slammed directly into the center of the creature's ribcage. The cursed skeleton instantly shattered into 100 jagged bone fragments, exploding outward like a burst grenade. BJ High jaw dropped so low it almost hit the floor as she watched a level 1 monk obliterate an elite mob with one basic strike. 3 more skeletons rushed him simultaneously from his blind spots, their weapons swinging in a coordinated pincer movement. Tayang dropped low into a sweeping crouch, spinning on his heel with fluid, water-like physical choreography. His low sweep shattered their leg bones instantly, sending all 3 monsters crashing heavily onto the cold stone floor. Rising in one seamless motion, he brought his heel down like a falling meteor onto the skull of the nearest fallen creature. Neon golden experience point notifications began to pop up rapidly around him, illuminating his cold face. The rest of the skeleton horde hesitated, their primitive AI coding struggling to comprehend the absolute destruction of their front lines. "Is that all the first floor has to offer?" Tayang taunted, gesturing forward with a single mocking wave of his open hand. Enraged by the blatant insult, the remaining 50 skeletons roared in unison and charged forward in a chaotic, massive wave. Tayang closed his eyes for a split second, tapping into his legendary elite gaming intuition to predict every single trajectory. He moved like a localized hurricane, stepping through the tiniest gaps in their formation while delivering precise lethal counterpunches. The global livestream chat speed went completely out of control, filled with rows of exclamation marks and expressions of absolute awe. Within less than 3 minutes, the entire horde was reduced to a massive, harmless pile of shattered white dust on the floor. You didn't even take a single point of damage," BJ High stammered, checking his flawless green health bar. Tayang merely brushed a stray speck of bone dust off his shoulder, his eyes already locked on the far side of the chamber. With a heavy mechanical click, a large decorative portal structure materialized out of thin air at the back of the arena. The multicolored reward doors of the lower floors had finally revealed themselves, offering different pathways to the next stage. Without a moment of hesitation, Tayang walked forward and stepped directly through the shimmering threshold to transition into the next difficult trial. But as the light swallowed him, a sudden Crimson System error window violently flashed across his entire vision, blaring an alarm. "Warning, abnormal floor corruption detected, altering destination to an uncalibrated hazard zone." The system voice boomed out maliciously. The stable portal energy instantly warped into a swirling vortex of pitch-black shadows and violent crimson lightning, trapping him inside. From the depths of the corrupted rift, a pair of colossal, ancient crimson eyes slowly opened, locking onto Tayang's falling figure with pure malice. The colossal crimson eyes locked onto Tayang as he plummeted through the dark, swirling void of the corrupted rift. Instead of panicking, the legendary PvP champion twisted his body mid-air with flawless spatial awareness. He slammed his palm against a passing piece of floating debris to alter his descent trajectory. A sleek holographic landing prompt materialized before his eyes, counting down the milliseconds to the floor's surface. Tayang hit the solid ground in a low, perfectly absorbed roll that kicked up a shockwave of dust. Floating right beside his shoulder, the miniature administrator guide BJ High rubbed her eyes in utter disbelief. She frantically pulled up her livestream chat widget, which was already exploding with chaotic, colorful text alerts. Directly ahead of them stood 3 massive, multicolored reward doors pulsing with distinct magical elements. Tayang scrutinized the glowing runic inscriptions carved deep into the frames of the multicolored doors. In Dantalion, the color of a reward door indicates the exact ratio of risk to potential skill progression. Without a single moment of hesitation, Tayang strode directly toward the dangerous, pulsing crimson portal. High shrieked loudly, warning him that the red path held a survival rate of less than 5%. A confident smirk played on Tayang's lips as his hand breached the warm, crackling surface of the barrier. The environment instantly transformed into a desolate, volcanic arena ringed by razor-sharp obsidian pillars. From the bubbling pools of magma, a dozen heavily armored flame wardens emerged with roaring battle axes. Tayang closed his eyes for a brief second, synchronized his breathing, and shifted into a classic martial arts stance. He was now adapting his real-world, championship-winning physical combat techniques directly into the game's rigid framework. The first flame warden charged forward violently, bringing its massive axe down in a devastating vertical arc. Tayang drove his open palm upward into the monster's iron chin, utilizing the perfect kinetic transfer of his weight. A system notification chimed loudly as the hidden mastery gauge began to skyrocket. 3 more wardens surrounded him simultaneously, their weapons locking him into a hopeless, inescapable corner. Tayang planted both heels firmly, spinning his entire torso with explosive torque to initiate a devastating counter-rotation. The sheer physical velocity triggered a high-tier skill unlock, materializing a massive hurricane of pure kinetic energy. A massive system banner flashed across the sky, confirming the acquisition of King P's advanced Transcendental Cyclone. With one final sweep of his leg, Tayang released the stored energy, obliterating the remaining enemies into dust. The livestream viewers flooded the interface with gifs, shocked by a monk utilizing high-tier physical techniques so early. A heavy obsidian gate at the far end of the arena ground groaned open, revealing a long, grand staircase ascending upward. Tayang climbed the endless steps, his footsteps echoing softly in the vast, increasingly cold architecture. The air grew heavy with the sweet, intoxicating scent of ancient roses and old iron-rich copper. He finally stepped into a breathtaking, cavernous royal chamber, adorned with velvet curtains and crystal chandeliers. At the far end of the hall, seated upon an ornate golden throne, was a breathtaking woman draped in royal silk. This was the deceptive domain of the capricious vampire queen, Aquanella, known for slaughtering thousands of players. The beautiful queen smiled warmly, her ruby lips parting slightly to reveal sharp, glistening vampire fangs. Tayang stopped exactly 20 paces away, his sharp eyes narrowing as he analyzed the entire room's layout. High hid trembling inside Tayang's collar, whispering that the queen's power level was far beyond their current tier. Something about the subtle distortion of the air around the throne didn't align with Tayang's elite gaming intuition. He noticed a massive, silent shadow stretching across the ceiling from a completely different corner of the room. The 5-time PvP world champion quietly shifted his weight forward, preparing to exploit the hidden mechanics of this deadly boss room. Queen Aquanella raised her delicate hand, signaling a swarm of blood-red magical spears to materialize out of thin air around her. As the deadly spears launched forward with blinding speed, Tayang did not move to dodge them, but instead charged directly toward the darkest shadow in the room. The dark shadow rippled violently across the cold stone floor as Yin Tayang accelerated to his maximum movement speed. Deadly steel spears whistled through the empty air, piercing the precise location where he had been standing merely a millisecond before. Instead of retreating to a defensive position, Tayang lunged forward directly into the path of the oncoming projectile trajectory. The beautiful pale vampire queen sitting upon the ornate throne widened her crimson eyes in genuine disbelief at his suicidal maneuver. Tayang noticed a subtle delay in the movement of the gigantic hound resting at the base of the grand dais. A flashing blue status window materialized in the corner of his vision, confirming his elite tactical theory regarding the boss mechanics. With a sudden burst of physical strength, Tayang vaulted over the final row of defensive spikes with absolute precision. His boots slammed heavily onto the red carpet of the elevated platform, kicking up a small cloud of ancient dust. The elegant pseudo-queen raised her delicate hands to cast a protective magical barrier, but her casting speed was far too slow. Tayang closed the remaining distance instantly, wrapping his glowing leather hand wraps tightly around her slender neck. The purple magical runes shattered into thousands of harmless glowing fragments before the spell could ever manifest fully. "Did you really think a veteran 5-time PvP world champion would fall for such a basic diversion tactic?" he whispered coldly. The beautiful silver-haired woman gasped for breath, her pale skin beginning to glitch with a faint green illusory pixel outline. From the bottom of the steps, the gargantuan, monstrous hound Jian let out an earth-shattering growl that shook the stone foundation. Tayang did not even turn his head to look at the beast, maintaining his iron grip on the trembling hostage. In high-level tactical RPGs, developers frequently place a highly attractive boss character as visual bait to hide the true threat. The real mastermind of this royal chamber isn't the fragile queen, but the pet sitting at her feet, Tayang announced loudly. The giant crimson hound froze mid-stride, its glowing red eyes widening as its secret identity was effortlessly exposed. Instantly, the illusion shattered completely as the beautiful woman in his hands dissolved into a cloud of harmless digital smoke. The monstrous hound Jan began to expand in size, its crimson fur standing on end as dark energy erupted around it. "Human, you have committed a grave mistake by uncovering the true form of Aquanella," a booming demonic voice resonated. Tayang cracked his knuckles slowly, a highly dangerous expression appearing on his face as he stepped down the throne stairs. A massive crimson health bar materialized in the sky, revealing the true name Aquanella, the sovereign of blood shadows. The gargantuan wolf beast lunged forward with terrifying speed, its massive shadow claws tearing through the solid stone floor. Utilizing his advanced elite gaming intuition, Tayang calculated the exact hitbox of the incoming horizontal swipe. He dropped his center of gravity, performing a flawless low slide beneath the massive razor-sharp claws. As he passed directly underneath the beast, Tayang unleashed a heavy upward strike using his glowing fists. The powerful blow struck the vulnerable soft underbelly of the giant monster, forcing it to crash heavily onto the ground. "Your health pool is impressive, but your attack patterns are entirely predictable," Tayang stated, spinning around to face it. Enraged by the disrespect, Aquanella summoned dozens of dark shadow clones that instantly surrounded the lone monk. Tayang immediately activated his newly unlocked high-tier skill, King P's Advanced Transcendental Cyclone. A massive vortex of dense physical kinetic wind erupted outward, shredding the fragile shadow clones into absolute nothingness. Before the main body of the beast could recover its footing, Tayang closed the gap with a high-speed dash skill. He delivered a brutal downward axe kick directly onto the crown of the giant monster's head. The immense physical impact forced the giant wolf's snout violently into the solid bedrock, creating a deep crater. Tayang landed lightly on top of the beast's neck, maintaining an overwhelming physical presence that completely suppressed its movements. He raised his right fist, which was now glowing with an unstable, blinding white aura of pure concentrated physical power. Looking up at the cold, merciless expression of the human player, the Grand Sovereign of Blood Shadows began to tremble violently with primal fear. "Yield completely and submit to my authority, or I will delete your entire existence from this system right now," Tayang threatened calmly. Completely defeated, the giant beast let out a low, submissive whimper, its dark, aggressive aura vanishing instantly as it lowered its ears. A massive golden system notification appeared in midair, confirming the absolute successful subjugation of the floor boss. The miniature administrator guide BJ High manifested into the air, dancing excitedly around Tayang's head while checking the live stream statistics. The global livestream chat section exploded into absolute madness as millions of viewers witnessed a boss being taken alive for the first time. With the floor cleared, a massive Gothic archway materialized at the far end of the room, glowing with a deep, violet magical light. As Tayang stepped through the threshold, the environment shifted instantly into a massive crowded underground market filled with strange cosmic entities. The loud ringing sound of an auctioneer's gavel suddenly echoed through the chaotic space, drawing his immediate attention to a grand central stage. On the display stand sat a legendary glowing artifact that emitted an incredibly familiar, ancient magical energy signature. Tayang's eyes narrowed instantly as he recognized the item as one of the forbidden tools capable of altering the real-world death system parameters. Before he could even formulate a bidding strategy, a sinister group of high-ranking cosmic overseers locked their eyes directly onto his position. The lead overseer slowly raised a hand to signal the heavily armed guards, closing off all the available exit gates simultaneously. The lead overseer slowly raised a hand to signal the heavily armed guards, closing off all the available exit gates simultaneously. Yun Taiyang stood completely unmoved in the center of the grand Colosseum-style auction house, a relaxed smirk playing across his lips despite the sudden lockdown. Beside him, the miniature administrator guide BJ High floated in midair, nervously biting her tiny fingernails as she scanned the closing exits. The cosmic overseers, entities adorned in ornate golden masks and flowing starlight robes, peered down from their elevated VIP balconies. Tayang had intentionally triggered this confrontation, knowing that the legendary artifacts required to permanently save his sister were locked within this very vault. With a dramatic sweep of his arm, Tayang manifested a massive pile of glowing scavenged treasures directly onto the auctioneer's display pedestal. The elite audience of high-ranking vampires, demons, and cosmic travelers gasped collectively at the sheer volume of high-tier loot. High quickly summoned a massive holographic bid counter above Tayang's head, the numbers spinning rapidly into the millions. An arrogant vampire lord in the front row slammed his fist down on his seat's armrest, attempting to outbid Tayang with a chest full of blood diamonds. Tayang merely smirked and snapped his fingers, instantly doubling his previous bid by sacrificing another legendary boss core from his inventory. The auctioneer, a frantic multi-armed demon entity, began sweating profusely as he struck his gavel down to finalize Tayang's absurdly high bid. A massive ornate glass case containing the legendary Heart of Eternity artifact descended from the ceiling directly into Tayang's waiting hand. The atmosphere shifted instantly from a high-stakes bidding war to palpable malice as the elite audience realized they had been completely outmatched by a lone human. Tayang carefully pocketed the Heart of Eternity, knowing that his primary objective was secure and that the real fun was about to begin. He reached back into his endless digital storage space and pulled out a massive glowing glass vial filled with a swirling pink iridescent liquid. Whisperings of absolute terror and maddening desire rippled through the vampire nobles section as they recognized the legendary forbidden hormone V. "If you want this so badly, all you have to do is take it," Tayang announced, his voice echoing perfectly across the entire Colosseum through the arena microphone. With a deliberate flick of his wrist, Tayang slammed the vial onto the stone floor, shattering it into a million glittering pieces and releasing a massive wave of pink pheromones. The scent drove every vampire in the room into an uncontrollable primal bloodlust, causing them to completely lose their minds and leap over the balconies. The cosmic overseers screamed out orders to stop the chaos, but their words were instantly drowned out by the deafening roars of the rioting crowd. Moving with the precise fluid grace of a five-time world champion, Tayang sidestepped the first descending vampire without even looking up. He activated his transcendental cyclone skill, spinning on his heel to unleash a massive swirling vortex of wind that launched 5 attackers backward into the walls. High zipped through the air above the chaos, tracing complex magical runes with her fingers to activate the trap network Tayang had secretly placed before the auction began. "Stage 1 of the ambush is active, Master," she shouted cheerfully over the roar of the fighting. Instantly, the golden lines on the ceiling shattered downward, morphing into thousands of heavy magical chains that pinned the charging vampire riot to the ground. Tayang walked calmly through the grid of immobilized monsters, his boots clicking softly against the stone as he approached the main vault door hidden behind the stage. The lead cosmic overseer descended directly in front of the vault, drawing a massive celestial blade that crackled with dark matter energy. "You think a mere human can rewrite the rules of Dantalion?" the overseer boomed, his voice vibrating with absolute authority. Tayang simply lowered his stance, entering the perfect combat stance of the Transcendental Monk class as blue flame-like mana erupted from his fists. The Overseer lunged forward with blinding speed, bringing the celestial blade down in a vertical arc that shattered the stone floor for miles. But Tayang had already anticipated the frame data of the attack, utilizing an advanced parry mechanic to deflect the massive blade with his bare glowing palms. The Overseer's golden mask cracked slightly down the center as he realized his ultimate attack had been stopped effortlessly by a mortal's raw mechanical reflex. Without giving his opponent a single frame to recover, Tayang unleashed a barrage of Iron Fist strikes directly into the Overseer's chest armor. The final punch carried the full weight of his accumulated PvP mastery, completely shattering the Overseer's celestial form into thousands of harmless digital fragments. As the Overseer fell, the massive system lock on the vault door dissipated, causing the heavy mechanism to hiss and slide open smoothly. Standing inside the vault was the glowing digital avatar of his sister, her shackles instantly shattering as Tayang stepped across the threshold. High clapped her tiny hands together in pure joy, floating around the reunited siblings as a massive system notification proclaimed the total clearance of the Tower of Death. The deadly synchronization mechanics of Dantalion began to unwind, sending a massive wave of golden restoration light across the entire real world and saving millions of trapped players. Tayang gently took his sister's hand as their digital bodies began to safely log out, a profound sense of closure wrapping around them at last. Having completely conquered the ultimate death RPG and rewritten the laws of the universe, the legendary PvP king finally logged out, leaving behind an unbreakable legacy of absolute dominance